think that idea of fueling and moving first thing in the morning, if you can, that's a really nice way to set up your day. It gets your mind working in a creative way as well. Movement is when I come up with some of my best ideas, and I think I kind of get back from that and I'm ready to just hit go on all of the things I thought about.
Welcome, and thank you, Jess, for joining us on the Day 8 Training Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Anne-Marie.
Congratulations on finishing 13th at the recent Olympics in the women's marathon. That was amazing, and I think you were the first Australian finisher as well. How was the Olympics?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this Olympics. It was my third experience, but quite a unique one because it was my first as a mum. So when I went to London in 2012, I think I was 24 years old, and it was my second ever marathon. I was there, mind blown by the Olympic Village and the people I was in a team with. I was really there to soak up as much as I could. Then when I went to Rio 4 years later, I'd had some injury challenges in the lead up to that Olympics. I really enjoyed the experience and definitely squeezed everything out of myself in the race. I finished 22nd there, and then I didn't go to the Tokyo Olympics in 2021. So obviously Rio 2016 to Paris 2024, there are a lot of years in between, and I lined up for this one feeling just so happy to be there. I felt well prepared. Training had gone to plan, and had my kids and my husband and my parents and siblings out there cheering for me. It was a very special event, and I thought Paris did a fantastic job, put on a great games, but particularly the marathon event. It was an amazing course. Tough one, but beautiful.
Paris, and just watching it on TV, it looked amazing. How did you find the Olympics compared? Like, you've done 3 now.
Each Olympics was incredible in its own way. This one, I've learned a lot, and I've had a lot of experiences now in my, how many years? 12 years of marathon running. And I think each marathon teaches you so much. And so to bring all of those learnings to this one, the main thing I was proud of is just the way I felt so calm out there and was able to execute my plan and not feel overwhelmed. There'd been various challenges in the lead up, and I sort of was able to block that noise out and just focus on the opportunity and the great team I had around me, and felt like I got to the finish line with nothing more to give, and was proud of that 13th place. And I had a lot of fun over there. It was a bit daunting moving out away from my family for those 5 nights to be in the village. I haven't spent that long away from them before, and from my baby. Just feeding, logistics, all of those things. At times I was getting a little bit worried about how it was all going to work out, but we just took each day as it came, and my husband was incredible with juggling the 2 kids and helping me to do everything I needed to do to prepare. So yeah, it was a really good experience.
You did mention you had a few challenges beforehand. I assume it was where they disputed whether to qualify.
Yeah.
How did you go overcoming that mentally and setting that aside and really focusing to run and achieve and focus on the goal at hand with the Olympics?
Yeah, look, it taught me a lot, that period. I got sort of that initial window where I'd found out that I'd been selected, and I felt the joy and the excitement, and was able to celebrate that with my family and my coach and the other girls who'd been selected. And then when the appeals process played out, to be honest, that was quite expected that an athlete may appeal, but it evolved differently to what I imagined might be involved with an appeal. And there was a lot of external noise, and at times there was a lot of self-doubt. I did wonder whether I was good enough, and had all of those thoughts, and my husband in particular was really integral in helping me to maintain belief, and my coach, and we worked through those feelings. I really did try to avoid reading a lot of the online commentary because it never made me feel any better about the situation, and it wasn't anything I really could or had the desire to act upon either, so I couldn't see what was to win from reading it. I just had to keep focusing on preparation. So it does come back to control what you can control. And for me, reflecting on my priorities, which is my family and health and those aspects, that by thinking about the opportunity that would present if we could get through this and I could get to Paris, I knew that my family was keen to go and watch me, and that would be such an incredible experience and opportunity for them as well. That's what I thought about during the times of stress and self-doubt.
And that's true. We can only control what we can control. I like that, how you didn't read it, because I find a lot of people that write things online, if you were to walk past them in the street, they wouldn't say any of that to you, to your face.
Yeah, it's true. And you just don't know their background and their perspective. And I don't think it's spending time trying to get involved, and it doesn't generally lead to a better outcome. So it's best just to not really know it's going on, or not know the details, and keep spending time with the people who do know you.
And focus on the goal.
Yes.
Yeah. What inspired you to pursue marathon running at a competitive level?
Probably the opportunity to represent Australia. So I grew up in a country town in Naracoorte, and the idea of being able to play sport at a high level one day really appealed to me from a young age. And I thought netball was probably my favourite sport at the time. I found running, whilst I did have a bit of early success in making some state teams, I had the opportunity to travel to France actually with the World Schools cross country team. They were incredible opportunities, but the nerves just made it also really tough. I would just get so worried in the lead up to races, and I wasn't training specifically for running. I was juggling a lot of sports, and so I'd line up feeling that I maybe hadn't prepared as well as everyone around me, and I found that tough, which is why I think I lent more on netball. And at the age of 21 got to a stage where I was juggling a lot in life and thinking maybe I should see how far I can take running. It's a sport that I can weave in throughout my other commitments. I was studying physiotherapy at the time, and I wasn't progressing much more in netball. So that's the point in my life where I decided to focus on running and stopped playing other sports. And it was my coach, Adam, who suggested to me that the marathon would probably be my best event. And whilst I shared with him that the Olympics was my ultimate dream at that age of 21, I really didn't believe it was achievable, but he encouraged me to write it down and just see how far we could go. So I've got a lot to thank him for. I think endurance was probably always my strength as a netballer and a basketballer as well. So I'm glad I eventually ended up in this sport.
It shows the importance of having the right people around you to really encourage and motivate you. So how long before you made that commitment was the Olympic? Because it was 24 that you went, so in 3 years.
Yeah, so in 2008, I started being coached by Adam, and I had been training 2 to 3 times a week for running in amongst my netball and other sports with my previous coach. But with Adam, I started focusing more on building up that fitness and started racing a little bit more. I started to see progress in my race results, and I found that really motivating. And in 2010, I won my first City Bay Fun Run. And then 2011, the City to Surf in Sydney. And I'd also just started to make some Australian teams. So in 2011, it was the World Half Marathon Championships. And at that point, Adam sort of had been building up my training gradually and said, I think we could work towards your first marathon. And we ended up choosing one in Japan in March of 2012. And that's the marathon where I was able to get a qualifying time for the London Olympics of that year. So it did happen quite quickly, but it was off a big base of playing a lot of different sports, which was probably the perfect preparation because I didn't mentally burn out, but I was able to have a bit of speed, a bit of agility and a bit of fitness from particularly, I think, the netball.
That's impressive. And just for the benefit of the users, a marathon is it 42.192 Ks?
195, yeah.
195.
Very close.
Yeah, which is quite a bit to run. But you've got a raft of achievements, and I was looking up and reading before this interview, and then you've got the Commonwealth Games, you've got 2 bronze medals there, and then the gold one at the 2018 Gold Coast Commonwealth Games.
That was 2022. Was the gold medal. Yeah.
But in Birmingham. Actually, I was at the South Australian Athletics Centre in Mile End, and I went into the club rooms and I saw a picture of you on the wall. So I was quite excited because I knew the interview was coming up. I'm like, oh, wow. What is one of your career highlights and proudest moments?
It probably would be this year's Olympic Games, the training or the preparation that I was able to get done, and then the race itself. It was just a really big team effort, starting from when I was pregnant with Ellie, thinking, will I be able to get back to running at the same level? And then I gave birth to her this time last year and started to get back into walking and then jogging and sessions. And then at that point, I penciled in a marathon in April, and training fortunately just progressed really well, and I was able to line up at that marathon feeling ready to run a personal best time. And fortunately that was enough to get me selected for Paris. And I think just working through those, we were just sort of, you get through one week and then raise the bar, and it was just really nice going into that period quite open-minded and seeing how it would go with obviously a lot of variables and young children. You can only plan so much. You really do have to take it a day at a time. So I'd say it was a career highlight for the way we logistically got it all done, but then how my body was able to cope with the different challenges, and then just how much I enjoyed it on the day. Birmingham in 2022 was another career highlight. Crossing the line first is obviously, it's just something very special, and to have Dylan and Billy there at the finish line and my mother-in-law, I felt just this total sense of everything had sort of culminated in that one moment, and it felt really rich. So I always love reflecting on that race too.
And it's amazing. You can show your kids and grandkids the medals as they grow up. So how often do you train?
It's every day, and in a marathon block, it's often twice a day. So a Monday, I might do a morning and an afternoon run. And then on a Tuesday, I have one of my bigger marathon sessions. And in the afternoon, I might do an elliptical session, so a cross-training session. We have an elliptical here at home. Or a light jog. Wednesday's a longer morning run, and I might do gym or mobility in the afternoon. And then Thursday, it's often 2 jogs, or again, a jog and a cross-training session. Friday is another big marathon session day, so a lot of volume in the morning, and I might do something light in the afternoon, either cross-training or a jog. Saturday's an easy day. I just choose whether I feel like doing a light jog in the morning or having a rest day. And then Sunday's a really big sort of 2.5 hour long run. So it's, juggling a bit of work on the aerobic side, and then a bit of marathon pace, some strength and conditioning and mobility, and then a bit of cross training. And I used to stick to quite a rigid training program. These days I listen to my body a lot more and adjust things as I go. And my coach really trusts that I'll know what's best. So I don't have as much volume in my program these days. I used to get up to 180 plus kilometers in a week before I was a parent. Since giving birth to Billy in 2019, the biggest week I've done there was just 1 week in the build up to Paris where I did 170 Ks, but generally in a marathon block, I'd sit around 160 Ks a week. So, 20 plus kilometers less than I used to do.
Wow, that's still massive. And how do you go about juggling that with, kids, house, training?
I mean, there's a lot of washing. My husband's a runner as well. There's always plenty of housework to do. With the kids, Billy's at an age now where he has kindy 2 days a week and ELC 2 days. So I'll often train before kindy drop off. I like to just get up and train first thing in the morning. I find getting up for a hard session or a long run in the evenings, you just feel exhausted by that stage. So I'd rather have it done in the morning. Then Ellie, we've had a nanny come and help with her in the earlier stages on my session days. And then she's just started a day of childcare. So that's something we just sort of work out as we go each marathon block as she's getting older, the different levels of care available. Dylan and I have to sit down and look at the months ahead and work out the logistics of it all. He trains as well. He's an 800-meter runner and he works full time. So it might be that he gets home from work and I'd be keen to do my double session, but then he's got his training to do. So a lot of communication. Fortunately, it's something that he and I are pretty used to figuring out those things. We communicate a lot.
There is a lot involved, but that's quite a lot of training and commitment and time that you put in there to get those results. It just doesn't happen overnight like some people might.
Well, and it's probably the padding around that to enable you to train that much that is also quite time consuming, making sure you have enough sleep, which as a parent you can't necessarily control that, but we go to bed early so that however many times I wake up in the night with Ellie, particularly at the age she is, I'm clocking up hopefully enough sleep. And then nutrition, making sure you've got quality food to have before and straight after training to make sure you recover, and then fitting in some appointments around that physio, soft tissue work as you need it. So yeah, it's something that I've really gradually built up to, that level of training, but you still obviously have to call it and say, no, it's a rest day today if you've had a particularly tough night or you're feeling vulnerable.
What do you do for recovery?
For me, sleep and nutrition are keys to recovery. I think when I've had less sleep than, that kind of 8 hours or just under, if I have that a few nights in a row, I'll just notice I'm feeling less motivated, might get a bit of a tickle in my throat or a bit of a niggle. I really need to try and get about 8 hours to be at my best. Nutrition, I think, is huge as well. Getting a lot of variety in my diet, eating enough, which fortunately I have a huge appetite, so that's not too much of a challenge for me, but making sure I am getting food in straight after my runs to kickstart that recovery process. I don't use, recovery boots and those sorts of things. Not that I don't believe in them. I think they feel fantastic, but I just don't, I guess, prioritize that type of recovery with everything going on in life. I just try and stick to the basics at this point.
So after a training session, what sort of food would you eat?
So given that I usually train in the morning, I'll have toast and maybe a coffee before I head out the door. And then when I come back, I have a big bowl of muesli with usually almond or peanut butter and sliced banana, maybe some blueberries, and my protein. I have whey protein isolate that I mix in with that as well after a key session, just to up the protein, and might even add some Greek yogurt as well.
That sounds delicious. I might try it, but I do find, because I train in the gym, protein's key. If I have that protein, I find that my muscles tend to recover better, and I can train better the next time as opposed to when I don't.
I didn't take a protein powder when I was returning to running after having Billy. I wasn't sure whether it was safe with breastfeeding. I'm not sure why I was worried about it, just all of the ingredients you see in protein powders. But I then did a bit of research and looked into protein powders with less of the additives and those sorts of things, and got the all clear from a number of sports dietitians to say you can breastfeed and have protein powder. And I feel like it's made a big difference this time around.
Yeah, no, definitely agree with you. And you mentioned you do a bit of strength training in your routine. What sort of strength training do you do?
I've consistently been doing 2 Pilates sessions a week. That's an online Pilates. Alice Bequee set up a bit of a community with runners who are aspiring to sort of represent Australia or their country, that sort of level, from all over the world. And we get together, and so we might have someone from Germany and South Africa and a couple of Australians in on a class, and we were all working towards that goal of competing in Paris together. So we do one strength and conditioning focused session, strength endurance work, and it's just mat Pilates, and then a more mobility focused session in the week. And then I try to get into the gym as well to do some weighted squats, some Romanian deadlifts, weighted calf raises, some pulley work, just a bit more of the resistance training as well. So it's all about what you can fit in, but I've found keeping some sort of consistency with that has really helped me to build up more tolerance as a runner for the running training.
We actually have a few clients that enjoy running, and some of them are building up to do a half marathon at some point within the next year. I guess, what advice or recommendations do you have for them or anyone wanting to do half or full marathons?
I do think consistency is really important. So you need to be patient and just start at a pretty low intensity, getting that base work in. And then as you either increase volume or intensity, not taking big jumps, just adding in layers as you go. So it might be you've gradually built up your volume. So then rather than building that up the next week, if you're wanting to add intensity, just, add in maybe one session with some intervals or repetitions at a faster pace. Or it might be some tempo work or fartlek, that speed play work, just one session, and then sort of wait until you're feeling really under control with that and that you're tolerating it well, and then you can add in another layer rather than thinking, I feel good this week, I'm going to add a whole lot of new things in, and surely enough over the next 2 to 3 weeks it might all come undone. I think acknowledging that something like a bone injury is a reflection of what you did in training 3 weeks earlier. So you might think you're handling this new load well, and then it's 3 weeks down the track that you actually realize you've overdone it.
I think that applies to life in general as well. For example, wanting to lose weight, don't change breakfast, lunch and dinner straight away. Start with one small change and then build up to it until it becomes a habit.
Yeah, and I think you'll see progress that comes with that gradually, and that's really motivating. I think as a runner, longevity, it's really dependent upon having this constant motivation, and if you're gradually improving, it fuels your motivation very well.
Yeah, and I find it's good for the mindset. So I don't do running. I don't mind a bit of sprint running, but in the gym, just being able to do the more reps or go up in the higher weights when I have challenges in other areas of life, I can always reference, hey, I overcome and I was able to lift more. I was able to, do more. So it really, I find, sets me up.
Yes, yeah.
How do you mentally prepare for races?
I think a lot of the mental preparation's done in training. So you learn strategies in training to help you through moments of boredom on a long run on your own, or if you're struggling to maintain pace, or if you're wanting to stop, you're going to find the cue that you give yourself, or focus on that tree over there and just get to that tree, little mind games, and all of those strategies you take with you into race day. But I think also taking some time before a race to visualize what it's going to look like out there, and know that there will be some challenge, and have some little strategies up your sleeve to help you through that, whether you have some words written on your hand, or it depends on how your mind works and what motivates you. It might be some people that you're going to think about at particular points, but actually preempting the struggle and saying, that's okay, when that moment comes, I'm going to think about this or do this to help me through it.
What do you think about when you are running in a race?
There's a lot. In a marathon, obviously it's a long time to be out there. In the early stages, I really am trying to conserve as much energy as possible, and that includes mental energy. I'm trying just to be smooth and think about my technique, making sure I'm getting my drinks and my gels to set me up for the later stages of the race. And then in those later stages, I let more thoughts come in that can feel a bit more emotional, thinking about the people who have helped you to get to that race, or the meaning behind it all, and why you're out there running. That's generally what gets me through the later stages when you're really starting to hurt.
It was nice also seeing, like, at the Olympics, you had your whole family there, your kids, parents there. How have your parents and family supported you throughout your journey?
In so many ways. I mean, growing up in Naracoorte, mum and dad always demonstrated like a hard work ethic, but just a love for life and the desire to make the most out of every opportunity. There was a strong community feel at our football and netball club, so that idea of working as a team and helping others out, I think I learned a lot of lessons and a love for the outdoors and nature and just moving that have helped me later in life. And whenever I have something to celebrate or something that I'm doing it tough, they're the first people I speak to, my parents, my siblings, my husband, and I really trust them and know that they always have just the best advice to give that comes from a really loving place.
That's beautiful. And how important are the people that you associate with and having that team around you?
I really love the team element of sport. I went into running thinking, is this going to be a bit lonely? It'll just be my coach and some other runners out there. But I feel like I'm a part of a big team and a lot of teams. So there's my training squad, Team Tempo. I just really enjoy the company of the people around me. We genuinely care about each other and what we're all doing. You sort of celebrate each other's successes and feel that strong sense of happiness. And then I've got my sponsors and that support network. I've got there's the general running community, just the people you run past on your regular loop and you give a wave or a smile. You start to feel like you know everyone who's in sync with you when you're out training. And then there's also when you travel away on a team, like the recent Paris Olympics, you have your team there as well. So we had the marathon team, we were really close, and then the whole Australian team. So there are just so many people that you get to work with, and the health providers as well. When you line up, there's just this whole world of people who have helped you to get there in some way. Even just the students at Naracoorte Primary who send me messages. I had 2 folders of letters to read through from them before the race. It's a very special feeling.
Yeah, and then you had all of Australia supporting and backing you and cheering you on from home. So I have 2 kids. I've got Chloe that does gymnastics and Jake, my son, that plays soccer. And many of our listeners, they're parents and they've got kids with big dreams, whether it's going to the Olympics and representing Australia, playing at an elite level or professional level. But we know that there's only a small percentage of children that actually make it. What advice would you give to parents on how to support their kids with big dreams while also preparing them that it possibly may not happen?
Yeah, I think if you can focus on health, that's a really good start. So you have your goals, and I think you have your big goals and then smaller stepping stones, the things you can do each week that will help guide you towards that goal. And then you might have some medium term goals, but really thinking about physical and mental health along the way. So if you're around people who help to bring out the best in you and create an environment that you enjoy, that's going to be more sustainable. If you're supporting your body with good nutrition and making sure you're feeling like you've got a good energy balance, you shouldn't be feeling like you're really dragging yourself out to each session, lacking energy. There's a lot to juggle as a child with your school, your social, your sport. And I just think for the long term, you really do need to find that enjoyment in your routine and make sure that if you have too many demands, you are prioritizing your health, because it would be really tough to make it through to the senior ranks, either mentally or without injury, if you're not prioritizing that.
You've given me a whole new perspective. Like, I know you're very fit and active throughout your whole childhood and life, whereas it was at 21 you made that decision. So it's never too late for a 6, 7, 8, 12-year-old as well. There is that time in certain sports as well.
There is, and I know in the country it might have been a bit unique because we could play sort of every sport and we weren't encouraged to specialise at a really young age and just pick one. I think the commitments might be a bit different in the city, and that's something I'll be learning soon with our young kids. I do think there is merit to having variety through your younger years and then specialising later on.
That's exactly what our head trainer here at D8 Training says. Try everything and then, specialise later on.
Yeah.
What was the best piece of advice that your parents gave you?
I can't remember any sort of one quote that they gave me, but it was probably just that general sense of unwavering support. When I made my first world cross country team as a year 10, I went when I was in year 11 student. There was a big financial cost that came with it, and mum and dad we had a bit of a fundraiser in Naracoorte, and they did whatever they could to make sure that I could capitalize on that opportunity. And I love that they never pressured us into doing anything, but really celebrated what we did do and helped us to grab every opportunity with two hands. So it was probably just seeing them lead by example in having that, as I said earlier, that zest for life and making the most of every opportunity, because we saw them doing that naturally as kids. We kind of wanted to do the same, and they've been amazing role models from the very beginning.
Nice. Sounds like you've got amazing parents. But I've got two questions that I tend to finish off with. What is one habit that someone can start today to make a positive impact on their training or vitality?
I think what you do at the very beginning of the day does set you up. I mean, for me, I really enjoy that moment where I eat my toast with whatever it is, peanut butter, almond butter, banana, and have my coffee, and then head out into the fresh air and nature to start my day. And what people eat for breakfast and what their movement is might be different, but I think that idea of fueling and moving first thing in the morning, if you can, that's a really nice way to set up your day, and it gets your mind working in a creative way as well. Movement is when I come up with some of my best ideas, and I think I kind of get back from that and I'm ready to just hit go on all of the things I thought about.
Nice. That's a beautiful way, and I think how you start sets yourself up. The other day I slept in and then I was just behind, and my whole day was not in flow in comparison to when I get up, meditate, have me time, and then kids wake up and off it goes.
Well, it's funny because I sometimes think, Saturday's my chance to have a rest day. I'll have a sleep in inverted commas. Maybe I'll just, do nothing for no exercise for the day. But I actually find I never quite feel myself when I try that. For one, I don't end up sleeping in, so I get frustrated that I can't get myself back to sleep. And two, I just want to be outdoors doing something anyway. So going for a walk instead might be the best option. But it is a routine that I love. And so you think that maybe you're going to enjoy stepping away from it for a day, but it ends up you feel a bit out of sorts.
I'm with you there. And last question, what does dominate mean to you?
Oh, I've never really thought about it. I mean, in a race or a sporting context, I always thought it was a very standout performance where everything comes together and you're leading the way in every sense of the word. But it comes with that sense of strength, I think, physically and mentally. So perhaps a physical and mental strength that leads to a very favourable result.
I love that answer, and I love that you also put that mental component as well. Thank you, Jess, so much for your time and coming onto the show. I've taken so many notes, and I definitely want to go back and re-listen to some of the parts, especially about with the parenting and really supporting them, focusing on them, and how you mentioned how you start your day. And it was just phenomenal, and you've just achieved so much. So congratulations to you with all of that.
Thank you.
What are your future plans with running?
I'd like to target another marathon in the near future. The last couple that I've run have featured either heat or hills, and I'd like to just try and pick a marathon that's a flatter course and try and set a new personal best time. But I'd like to run a bit faster across all distances, to be honest. We've got so many women out there showing that you can just keep layering the training, and there's no reason why to think as you're getting older that you shouldn't be able to get faster. So that's what I'm aspiring towards at the moment.
You can definitely do it. You can set a new precedent, for all the women out there. Well, I know now I can't use my kids as an excuse because you're able to make the Olympics in terms of 1 year of having Ali. And where can people follow your journey and stay up to date with all your achievements and what you're doing?
So Instagram's probably the platform that I use most, and that's my maiden name. It's at Jess_Tren, Tren. And then Facebook's also my maiden name, my athlete page. So that's Jessica Tren Gove. Yeah, so they're the main platforms that I use.
Right. And I'll pop them all into the show notes if you're comfortable with that, so that
Sure.
our listeners can follow you. Again, thank you, Jess, so much for coming on. This was amazing. And thank you to all our listeners for listening. If you know someone who would benefit from listening to this episode, please share it with them. Jess's insights and inspiring words were truly incredible and valuable. Please subscribe to the show. And until next time, dominate your life.